This case is a little different from others. Behind the walls of a seemingly picture-perfect marriage, a chilling secret lay buried, until Eric Richens' sudden death unraveled a tale of deception, greed, and betrayal. Was Cory Richens the loving wife she appeared to be, or was she orchestrating the ultimate betrayal right from their own home? Dive into the twisted details of a case that shocked a community and challenged the boundaries of trust and treachery. The Richens family was a famous family in Kaysville, Utah, mainly for their big cattle ranch. They later turned the ranch into a community conservatory. You can see their name on many buildings in town because they were very active in local activities. Eric Richens was born into this family to Jean and Linda Richens on May 13, 1982. Being the oldest of 3 kids, he had 2 younger sisters, Katie and Amy, who he looked out for. Growing up, Eric was a natural athlete and had a serious work ethic. He loved the outdoors, whether it was hunting, archery, cycling, or fishing. And the family was tied to the church, which played a big part in their lives. After completing high school at Woodcross, Eric took off on a 2-year mission to Mexico City for his church, where he picked up Spanish like a pro. When he got back, he earned his degree in international studies with a minor in Spanish from the University of Utah. Then, in 2005, Eric tied the knot with Julie, but that marriage didn't last long. They divorced within 4 years after some infidelity on her part. But that year turned out to be a turning point for him. He teamed up with his best friend, Cory Wright, and started a masonry business called CN Masonry. They focused on high-end outdoor stonework, pavers, and tiles for luxury homes. Eric spent a lot of time at Home Depot picking up supplies, and he even made friends with some of the staff there. And that's how, one day, he met Cory, a cashier he thought was really cute. At first, he was too shy to say anything, but with some friendly nudges from the other employees, he finally got the courage to talk to her and ask her out. To his surprise, things really clicked between them, and before long, they were pretty much inseparable. Now, Cory Darden, who was born on April 1, 1990, had a tough upbringing. Her dad, Ronald Darden, struggled with alcoholism, racking up a few DUIs and getting into trouble with the law. He passed away in 2010 at the age of 57. Cory was raised mostly by her mom, Lisa, along with her siblings Ronnie Jr., Renee, and Mindy. Cory was a hard worker, too. She juggled different jobs over the years, including running a housekeeping business and working in a design firm and a hospital. She earned her bachelor's degree in healthcare administration from Weber State University and went on to get her master's in human resources from Utah State University. So, both Eric and Cory were no strangers to hard work and overcoming challenges in their lives. They kicked things off with a romance that felt like a roller coaster. And by July 2012, they welcomed their first kid, Carter. That same year, they bought a house in Francis, Utah for Eric's sister, Katie, and her husband. Then finally, they tied the knot in a cozy backyard ceremony on June 15, 2013. Now, before they got hitched, Eric's mom handed Cory a prenup. You know, just in case, since Eric had already been through a divorce before and was doing pretty well with his masonry business. The prenup meant Cory would still have a claim on Eric's share of the business and their estate if something happened to him as long as they stayed married. While, after the wedding, Cory and Eric had 2 more boys, Ashton and Weston. Eric's masonry business also took off. He still spent a lot of time coaching the kids' sports teams, really stepping up as the main provider. Cory loved being a mom, but she also had her own dreams. In 2019, she became a partner at Conrad Cruz Real Estate Services and started her own gig, K. Richens Realty LLC, flipping houses. But things got tough for Cory financially as she tried to make her mark in the competitive Utah real estate scene. In September 2020, Eric suddenly got a wake-up call from a financial advisor. And to his surprise, he found out that Cory had tapped into a $250,000 home equity line on their house, taken out over $100,000 from his accounts, and racked up more than $330,000 on his credit cards. To top it off, she had also drained over $134,000 from his masonry business, money that was supposed to cover taxes. But why? Cory was just trying to keep her business afloat, but her actions really messed with the trust between them. Between 2015 and 2017, Cory also took out 4 life insurance policies on Eric, racking up nearly $2 million worth of coverage. When Eric confronted her about it, she agreed to pay back the whopping $515,000 she had taken. However, the damage was already done on both sides. In November, Eric decided it was time to get serious and met with a divorce lawyer and an estate planning attorney to sort things out. He had previously named Cory as the beneficiary of his will, but given how rocky things were between them, he changed his mind. Instead, he transferred control of his estate to his sister Katie. He even set up a trust fund for their 3 boys, making sure it would benefit them with his share in the masonry business and a $500,000 life insurance policy. As you see, this move effectively cut Cory out from all the financial plans. Now, Cory didn't know about all these changes, but she was definitely feeling the heat. She even discussed this with a friend, saying she was overwhelmed and worried Eric might catch on to her shady financial transactions. She even mentioned she owed $250,000 that she needed to pay back. Her main focus was making sure they could share custody of their kids without any legal messes, and Eric wanted Cory to come clean and settle her debts, but as time went on, turned out she kept struggling financially. Meanwhile, Eric and his friend and business partner, Cory, had an agreement about their life insurance policies which stated that if one of them passed away, the other could use the money from the insurance to buy the deceased person's share of the business. But on January 1st, 2022, Cory made a big blunder. She logged into Eric's business life insurance account and accidentally changed the beneficiary on Cory's policy to herself, instead of leaving Eric as the beneficiary. Luckily, the insurance agent caught that slip-up and fixed it, but Cory tried again and applied for another life insurance policy on Eric for an extra $100,000, and somehow it got approved by February 4th. Then on Valentine's Day, she left a little surprise for Eric, just a sandwich from a local diner with a love note tucked in. But later that day, when Eric bit into that sandwich, he ended up having a serious allergic reaction. He had to grab his son's EpiPen and pop some Benadryl before he could rest it off. He even told a friend that he had this sinking feeling that Cory might have tried to poison him. Cory, on the other hand, totally denied it, as usual. She claimed Eric was just being dramatic and that he hadn't really had a bad reaction, just a bit of a stomachache. Now, fast forward to late February 2022. Cory had her eyes on a huge, unfinished mansion in Heber City, which was said to be an architectural masterpiece. The mansion had lots of fancy features like a butler's pantry, swimming pool, therapy pools, a rock-climbing wall, 2 kitchens, and a guest house. Cory was excited to buy it for $2 million and hoped to sell it for $12 million to pay off her debt and improve her business reputation. However, Eric was worried about the investment, and they had some arguments about it. But finally, when the deal was accepted on March 3, 2022, Cory's mom, Lisa, came over to celebrate the moment. That day, Cory and Eric continued the celebration, but no one really knows exactly what happened. Some say they mixed drinks together, while others say Cory made a drink and brought it to Eric, who had taken a THC gummy and fell asleep. Later that night, things took a shocking turn. Cory had to go check on one of their sons who had woken up from his sleep. When she came back to the bedroom around 3 a.m., she found Eric lying there, totally unresponsive and cold. At first, she thought he was just chilly because of the air conditioning, so she tried to cover him up with a blanket. But when she touched him, he felt way heavier than normal. She flipped the light on and, to her horror, realized Eric wasn't breathing at all. Panic set in, and she called 911. The dispatcher told her to move him to the floor and start CPR, but things got messy when the first responders showed up. They saw that no one was doing chest compressions. Rather, there was blood and foam around Eric's mouth. This made people question what really Cory did during those panic-filled moments. Despite all the efforts from the paramedics, Eric was declared dead on March 4, 2022. It was a tragic twist that nobody saw coming. After Eric passed away, his family, friends, and especially his 3 young boys were left in total shock and heartbreak. Everyone thought of Eric as a great dad and had no clue he was dealing with any health problems. But then, whispers started floating around that he had just drifted off peacefully in his sleep because of a brain aneurysm, until the autopsy report came with a shocking revelation. It showed that he actually died from a fentanyl overdose. His levels were off the charts, like 5 times what could kill someone. And to make things even weirder, they found this antipsychotic called copain in his system, which is usually given for things like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. What's most striking was that the same drug was prescribed to Cory. Naturally, the whole thing became really suspicious. To make things worse, Cory's behavior right after Eric's death raised even more suspicions. The very next day, she bought that mansion and threw a party at the place where Eric had just died, celebrating her new home with drinks in hand. This was completely bizarre. On March 6th, Cory even called a locksmith to crack open a safe that held Eric's money and important papers. Amy, another sister of Eric, caught wind of this and followed the locksmith to the house. And when she told Cory she couldn't just open the safe without permission from Eric's trustee, Katie, Cory dismissed her, and things quickly escalated. Cory ended up attacking Amy, which made her call the police. When the police showed up, Amy called up Eric's estate planning attorney, who set the record straight about the trust. He told Cory that Katie was the trustee and beneficiary, not her. That just sent Cory over the edge because remember, all this time Cory didn't know about the changes Eric made in his will. Fast forward to April 2022, and the lead detective, Jeff O'Driscoll, showed up with a search warrant at Eric and Cory's place. He grabbed their phones and computers to dig for evidence. And while going through Cory's phone, they found some deleted texts from early March, but they also stumbled upon a bunch of messages with an unknown woman named Carmen Labor. Carmen was a housekeeper that Cory hired a lot, but she had a rap sheet with drug offenses, DUIs, and even aggravated assault. This only made the investigation into Eric's death messier and raised alarms about Cory and Carmen possibly being mixed up in something way darker. As the investigation rolled on, Carmen came clean about giving Cory fentanyl pills twice, once around Valentine's Day, and again, just before Eric died. After that Valentine's incident, Cory reached out to Carmen, saying the last dose wasn't strong enough and asked for something stronger, even using the phrase, "some of the Michael Jackson stuff," which is a nickname for propofol. It turned out Cory had tried to score propofol from another dealer but didn't get anywhere. Carmen mentioned she got about $900 each time for the fentanyl, and she provided details about how they set up their drug deals, which matched up with what the digital forensics showed. Meanwhile, when police interrogated Cory, they found there were some inconsistencies in her story about what happened the night Eric died. She claimed she left her phone charging in the bedroom while she dealt with their kid waking up from sleep. But the phone records told a different story, showing that she was active, locking and unlocking her phone, moving around the house, and sending and receiving tons of messages. Many of those messages were deleted later, including texts with another guy, hinting that Cory might have been having a long-term affair. All of this only fueled the growing suspicions about her involvement in Eric's tragic death. The man she was having an affair with was Robert Grossman, the handyman she had hired for her renovation projects. Back in December 2021, she booked a 5-night getaway for them at Secret St. Martin for April 2022, just a month after her husband Eric passed away. After she made the reservation, Cory opened up to a friend about wanting a divorce from Eric. She was really worried about losing custody of their kids and even said it would be better if Eric were dead. In her texts to Robert, she poured her heart out, telling him how much she loved him and wrestling with the guilt of tearing her family apart. Robert asked her about her plans for the divorce, but Cory didn't have a solid timeline in mind. The texts she sent showed she was daydreaming about a future with him, while still stuck in her marriage to Eric. By March 2nd, Cory told Robert that big changes were coming and showed concern for him during difficult times. After Eric's death, while investigations were ongoing, to everyone's surprise, Cory kicked off a civil lawsuit against Eric's estate. She was claiming she was entitled to some of his assets based on their prenup. Cory argued that Eric's attempts to transfer business interests to his trust didn't cancel out her rights, and she insisted that he put their family home in the trust without her knowing about it. But things got real messy when Eric's sister, Katie, dropped a bombshell. Turns out Cory was under investigation for homicide in connection with Eric's death. She had no idea that her online searches were getting her into hot water. They found some pretty suspicious stuff, like her Googling how to delete iCloud data, whether the cops could trace texts, what it takes to get a life insurance payout, and even some weird searches about luxury prisons and lethal doses of fentanyl. Cory's lawyer tried to brush it off as just her being curious, saying all those searches happened after Eric passed and after she knew about the investigation. Believe it or not, in March 2023, Cory even released a book called Are You With Me? It was supposed to help her kids deal with their dad's death, but it ended up making headlines because of all the legal drama swirling around her. On April 6th, Cory went on Good Day Utah show to promote and talk about a book she wrote with her 3 young sons after their dad, Eric, passed away unexpectedly. The book helped her kids understand and cope with grief. But then, things suddenly took an unexpected turn for her. Just after an interview she had, Cory was arrested on May 8, 2023, and hit with some serious charges, including felony first-degree murder for the death of her husband, Eric Richens. Plus, they also charged her with 3 counts of having illegal drugs with the intent to sell them. The reason? They pointed out that she had 20 pills of fentanyl, which was way more than what would be considered an accidental amount. It suggested that she actually meant to harm Eric rather than just using it for herself. They also brought up how she might have benefited financially from Eric's death, mentioning insurance policies and an estate that she thought would go to her, even though there was a trust in place meant for Eric's kids. You see, this is a solid motive. However, Cory's defense attorney, Sky Lazaro, argued that the woman named Carmen Labor, who was the drug dealer, was only providing all this information to reduce her own sentence. Lazaro claimed that Carmen was pressured into saying that Cory bought fentanyl from her, suggesting that investigators may have used threats to secure Carmen's cooperation. The hearing dug up a lot about Cory's financial issues and how she got her hands on the fentanyl. Turned out, on the night she was arrested, Cory reached out to Carmen for pain pills, saying they were for Eric. You see, this totally contradicts her earlier statement that Eric didn't use pain meds, and it aligns with what Carmen testified about, claiming that Cory was searching for drugs back on April 18, 2023. Now, Utah decided not to go for the death penalty in Cory's case, so they dropped her aggravated murder charge down to a non-capital first-degree felony. If she gets convicted, she could be looking at 25 years to life in prison. But just about a month later, a suspicious letter surfaced that everyone's calling the Walk the Dog letter. The police found it after Cory was taken to Park City Medical Center on September 12th, though it's still unclear why she was hospitalized. Once she got back to jail, they put her under observation until September 14th, and that's when her cell got searched. They found a manila envelope marked Sky Lazaro Attorney Privilege and decided to check out what was inside. What they discovered was a handwritten letter to her mom, laying out what her brother Ronnie would need to testify about. The letter had "Walk the Dog" written at the top, which is pretty suspicious. In the letter, what Cory claimed was mind-bending. She claimed her attorney, Sky Lazaro, was worried about the prosecution's game plan, which apparently involved saying that Cory tried to slip fentanyl into gummies for Eric. She was talking about needing to prove that Eric was connected to drug trafficking from Mexico and mentioned a private investigator looking into it. In this letter, Cory also insisted they needed to draw a clear line to drugs coming from Mexico, hinting that Ronnie had texts and pics related to Eric's drug use. It sounds like she was trying to set up a defense that would rely on Ronnie's testimony, hoping he could back up her story while downplaying her own role in Eric's drug issues. When this letter was released, Cory's lawyer quickly responded by filing a legal request. The lawyer claimed that the state violated a court order from May 31, 2023, which was meant to protect Cory's right to a fair trial and to prevent potential jurors from being influenced by outside information. The attorney also accused the prosecution of releasing the letter to influence public opinion and requested that they be held in contempt of court for breaking the gag order. Plus, they asked for Cory's case to be dismissed, arguing that the contents of the envelope should have stayed confidential because of attorney-client privilege. It was a complete mess. And amidst all this, she said that this walk the dog letter was totally misunderstood by the state. She insisted that it's just a part of a novel she's been writing while locked up, claiming they cherry-picked parts of her pages and made it look bad. Cory argues that while the story has some real-life stuff in it, it's mostly fiction, especially since her dad is still kicking in her story. But the state wasn't buying it. They think those pages could be a way for her to coach her brother on what to say. Come October 2023, the authority asked for more documents, believing they might uncover even more about witness tampering. They even tried to get a no-contact order between Cory and her family, but didn't succeed. However, the judge rejected Cory's request to dismiss the trial. Fast forward to March 2024, and Cory's hit with some more fresh charges. This time, she's in hot water again for attempted murder over a Valentine's Day sandwich poisoning, plus some mortgage and insurance fraud related to Eric's death. A new court document that just came to light hints that her mom, Lisa Darden, might have had a hand in Eric's death. An investigator from the Summit County Sheriff's Office dug up Lisa's past, pointing out her connection to another suspicious death back in 2006, which was brushed off as an overdose despite a sketchy drug history. This raised a lot of eyebrows about possible motives tied to Eric's death. On top of that, Cory's texts showed her mom wasn't too fond of Eric. The investigator thought all these signs pointed to Lisa possibly plotting Eric's death in the background, but Sky Lazaro, the prosecutor, was quick to remind everyone that opioid addiction is a huge issue in Summit County, framing Lisa's situation as just part of a bigger problem rather than something fishy. In May, things got even spicier. Cory's defense team tried to get the prosecutor, Brad Bloodworth, removed from the case. They claimed he violated Cory's right to talk privately with her lawyer by listening in on their conversations while she was in jail. They said this went on for about 8 months in 2023. Bloodworth also responded by saying that Cory's lawyer didn't use a special app to keep those talks private. He also said he would stop listening once he realized what was going on. But in the end, the judge decided not to remove Bloodworth from the case. However, during the hearing, things suddenly took a surprising turn when Sky Lazaro asked to step down from representing her. You can imagine the rumors flying around online, with people speculating about Cory's financial issues or some crazy evidence. But Lazaro cleared it up, saying it was really just a problem within his own law firm and not anything personal with Cory. So Cory ended up with 2 new public defenders, Kathy Nestor and Wendy Lewis. The judge decided to hit pause on the preliminary hearing to give them some time to get up to speed with the case. In the meantime, Cory sent out a recorded message to the media, standing firm on her innocence in her husband's murder. During the preliminary hearing on August 26th, Cory chose not to testify, and the chief prosecutor, Brad Bloodworth, presented evidence of her possible financial motives. Judge found enough evidence for the charges against Cory, who pleaded not guilty to 11 counts. A pre-trial conference was set for late September 2024, with jury selection in April 2025, and the trial expected to last 4 weeks, starting April 28th next year. Cory's defense team is confident that 2025 will be the final year of truth. What do you think will come out as the final truth? Do you think Cory is the guilty here, or is there something else in the play? Tell us in the comments, and if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you soon.